Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this bonus week of the District 7750 Virtual Membership Summit Series. Thank you for joining us today, and thank you for being here for the past 4 weeks. A reminder that this will be another live session, same content, Wednesday at noon, in case you have someone from your club who would benefit from it. And also a reminder that the recorded versions of this, all the materials that you've seen, all of that is in the Dropbox. So make sure you go to that if you've missed it, or if you want to show some of this to some of your club or your board or whatever. So thank you for joining us today. In this bonus week, we will hear from Patrick Eakes. Patrick will be a presenter along with Terry Weaver. Patrick, again, is the Rotary Zone Coordinator. He is over membership for the entire Zone 33 from Western Pennsylvania, Delaware, down through the entire state of South Carolina. He is from Greensboro, North Carolina, and he is a member of the Rotary Club of Crescent, North Carolina. And he is a member of District 7690, and he was district governor in 2014-15. Patrick will be presenting on Ron Pierce's video that you had a clip from in your homework. Ron Pierce was our club president who did something novel. He went to a couple membership summits, came back, saw declining membership, and decided, well, let me try some of these things I've heard people talk about. He did and had enormous success. So we will hear a facilitated version of that from Patrick, along with a facilitated conversation about raise the bar or reset the bar in your club. And then from Terry Weaver. And finally, we will close with concerns, challenges, questions, some things you may have found that you've already started implementing for the last part of this. That will be a facilitated discussion too. So thank you, Patrick, and take it away.
Thank you, Beth, and thank you all for allowing me to be with you these last few weeks. It's been fun, and I just wish we were in person, but we will save that till a safer time when I can be with all of you.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Ron Pierce.
You all did your homework, I'm sure, and had the opportunity to see Ron Pierce's video. But in case you didn't, I'm going to show you just the first part because it ties into the rest of the presentation today. So enjoy this next 3 minutes or so.
I am the past president for the Guilford Rotary Club. What we're going to talk about today is membership and membership growth strategies, and what we did as a club to kind of change things up in our club and to make things better and to help encourage growth. I want to give you a little background information about what we are as a club, about our size. So when you look at these numbers, you're going to notice that we're a pretty decent sized club. And we grew until about 2016. And then something started happening. And I don't know if you've ever experienced this as a club, but all of a sudden people just started disappearing. And we didn't know what was going on. So-and-so didn't show up anymore. And Susan wasn't there. And Bob wasn't there. Next thing you know, 2 or 3 people were gone. And so what had been 52, by the time I took over, was 40. Now, I had gone to Membership Summit a couple of years. And so I had seen these numbers, but the year I became president, or right before I became president, and I knew that was our number, I knew we had to do something different. Because you know as well as I do that 40 people in your club is great, but if only 20% of the people show up, that's not a lot of people. And so we had to do something different because otherwise we weren't going to be able to do fundraisers, we weren't going to be able to do projects, so we knew we had to do something to change this number. So what we're going to talk about is what we decided as a club to do to make things better for our club. Okay? So the first thing we had to do was we had to do a change of mindset with the club. Now, I know that a lot of you have heard, and it comes down from the top, that +1, just +1, you know. And what they're really saying to the presidents is, don't kill the club. Just whatever you do, don't kill the club. If you can grow 1 additional person, that's great. Well, +1 really doesn't help a club grow. That's life support is what that is. It's hanging a bag of fluids on the patient, but that's not making the patient any better. And so if +1 is our goal, we don't really have much to strive for here. So I had to do something a little bit radical. And so this is what I told our club: screw +1. And everybody just kind of looked at me and went, okay. And I said, we're going to do something different. This is going to be our goal this year. We're going to do plus 10. And their eyes got this big. And they just looked at me and went, Ron, we've never had a year where we were plus 10. That's unheard of, especially with the fact that a normal club is going to have attrition of just people leaving or somebody passing away. They're going to lose somewhere between 10 and 15% of the club members every year.
Okay, I think I know you all did your homework, you saw that, but I did want to just refer back to that first part of Ron's presentation because it ties in so well with what we talked about last week, and want to spend a little bit of time actually talking about exactly how that ties into the change of culture that we covered last week. So this was our last slide from last week where we retraced the steps for creating a culture change in your club. So we'll show this to you again. And of course, you have this on handout. As Ron said in his presentation, he attended a couple of membership seminars, much like this series that we've done for you. His was in a single day and in person, but it's the same material. And so what we want to do is talk about how he took from that membership seminar, implemented, and affected the kind of change that we've been talking about. Now, you saw his slide. It's kind of hard to miss, right? Screw plus one. That's not something you hear every day in a Rotary setting, for sure, but he graphically and he verbally said to his club, this is how we're resetting the bar. We're not doing this plus one anymore. We're going to redefine what success looks like. And success looks like plus 10. Now, that was a big reach for him, no question, but he recognized that his club members were not bothered enough by the steady drop that they had seen over 3 years. They had lost 13 of their 52 members in 3 years. That's 25% of the club. So he knew we need a big, audacious goal to change the direction that we're going. And it's important that when you do your reset the bar, when you define what good is for your club, that it is a measurable goal. It's a metric that you can everybody can be aware of, can see, and you can measure your progress against it. Now, of course, to put this culture change into place, Ron had to develop his spin script that we talked about last week. And we know that the spin, or the S in spin, is the situation. And you saw this slide in what we just replayed as well. The situation is, at one point, we were adding members, and now we're not. And I can tell you, I was the assistant governor for this club at one time. I'm still close to many people in the club. Just, it was not hitting them until he put up in front of them, we have dropped from 52 to 40 in 3 years. And that got people's attention, as did the plus 10. So he defined the situation, as we talked about. Here's the situation. So the rest of the spin, of course, is the problem, the implication, and the need. So in his slide, he laid out, here is our problem to solve, which is obviously the problem in spin, the P of spin. So he defined the situation, he defined the problem, which is we've lost our passion and our purpose in being Rotarians. The implication, I think, is pretty clear that you can't continue on this trajectory. And he said, the implication is we're not going to have enough members to have the kind of meetings we want. We're not going to be able to do the fundraisers we want. We're certainly not going to be able to do the projects that we want because we're just withering away. So what he recognized is we have to get back to our roots, which works for our club, the roots of Rotary, and we need to operate in a different way that's going to be attractive not only to prospective members, the members who we want to recruit, but it's going to be attractive to our current members who we want to hold on to. We want to keep them in the club. So that made up Ron's spin script, and if you watch his entire presentation, you see that he lays out a spin script just perfectly. Now, we talked about step 3, which is creating a coalition. And Ron talks in his video his presentation about talking to the originals. That's how he refers to the older senior statesmen of his club. And these are three of them. And I can tell you the one in the middle in the brownish jacket, he was actually the fifth club president of my club before he helped start Ron's club. Larry Carter, master auctioneer. But all three of these folks are around the age of 80. And so I guess rather than calling them by another name that maybe would be less flattering, Ron chose the originals. He went to them individually. He helped them understand the trajectory of the club. He knew that they were going to buy into, we have got to change things because this club that we've built and we've loved on and is an integral part of our life, we cannot allow it to wither away. So he got the buy-in individually of the originals. He met with them collectively about what his plans were going to be. He allowed them input, their feedback, and that created their buy-in. And then he had a coalition that was supporting what he wanted to do. So as I said, then he said, we're going back to our roots. We're going back to the basics of Rotary because it has worked for our club. It will work for our club. And that's creating the vision. And you can see here what he's talking about. We know every survey that's done that we see, why did you join Rotary? Well, networking, growing business, serving the community, and socializing, friendship. So, but he put this in front of the club as the vision. He had the buy-in of his coalition, that's step 3, and that put him in great position to just boil it down for the members. We've got to change our focus in our club and in our weekly meetings. And what he did was he changed the way they operated those meetings. He truly made an irresistible club. You've seen the video. You know where this is going. It's headed toward very good numbers for him. We've already talked about number 5, the spin scripts, and then he talked about behaviors. Conversation starter envelopes. That was particularly effective for him. So he, as he said in the video, here's a vase, here's an envelope. Open it up, open the question. You know, what did you want to be when you grew up? What was your favorite song when you were 20 years old? Whatever the question might be, something that got conversation going. The key part of this is some of those current members that maybe didn't feel as connected, well, they're going to participate in that conversation and they're going to reconnect. And especially for guests and prospective members who attend, I bet we've all had the experience of seeing someone new to the club sitting, not interacting, not engaged in any way with other members of the club. That doesn't happen with that conversation starter envelope. And I've seen some variations on what he did, but it worked quite well. And as he said in the presentation, it's just rude when you don't do something to be sure your guests are included. So he created more effective meetings, more fun meetings, more engaging meetings in this way. Now, we talked about communication, how important that is. And he said, need to have a come to Jesus meeting. And I'll tell you, when I first heard that, I thought, whoa, he is getting out there. What I didn't know is that Ron is a former pastor. So this came straight from the heart for him. But what he did was he had that meeting where he communicated very explicitly to the club what the culture change, you know, why it was necessary, what it was going to look like, how they were going to measure it, all those types of things. And then he kept communicating throughout the year by email and by newsletter and from the podium and in one-on-one conversations over and over and over until his members really internalized the message and changed their behaviors. And we talked about short-term wins as a really, really important part of getting the momentum going for the culture change. He created micro projects. So these are projects they did at their meetings. They would essentially take the place of a regular program. They were 30 minutes or less, and that anybody could participate in. It wasn't a matter of physical strength or stamina or anything like that. And again, that got all the members engaged, something they had fun with, because I always contend every service project is also a social event if it's done correctly. This was a very popular project that has been canceled or been copied repeatedly, coloring books for children at Moses Cone Hospital. So he bought these coloring books from a dollar store, brought them in, each member colored the first page, wrote his or her name and his or her age, and they were distributed at the hospital. And you know that brightened the child's day, and no doubt when parents of a child see Larry Carter, age 83, had done this coloring book, gave them a chuckle as well. They matched up socks for the homeless. I mean, this doesn't take a genius level IQ to be able to do, but it's impactful. We have a very serious homeless issue here in Greensboro. Everybody could do it. Everybody could have fun. There's always a joke about the sock drawer. So that was able to be done. You saw in the video, minute to win it contest. I think it was a little video of face the cookie and trying to move the cookie from a forehead to your mouth using no hands in 1 minute. And this, I don't know exactly what this slide is. It looks like some kind of version of beer pong to me. He did that and people had fun. They had fun, short-term wins. And getting serious about recruiting new members. Discover Rotary Days, as we've talked about. You're going to get a short-term win out of a Discover Rotary Day when you do it the way Sandy Olson showed you how to do it. You're going to get at least 50% of those guests who are going to put in an application to join your club. So it's a built-in short-term win. In Guilford Rotary's case, they decided to do their Discover Rotary Days in conjunction with another club. And they said, we don't care which club the member joins. One's a breakfast, one's a lunch. We're both going to get members out of this. And that worked really well for them. So takeaways. We know our steps. We've been through that now a couple of times. Ron Pierce attended a session much like you have these last few weeks. He implemented exactly the culture change recipe that Terry Weaver and Chris Jones provided to him. He used the intentional strategies that we covered a few weeks ago and put those into use, and he found that it worked. So the reason that we are going back through or showing you that video and then reviewing this is to try to convince you that this is worth your time to implement what we're talking about in terms of culture change. He's obviously humorous in his video. It's fun. And the first time I heard him speak, that's what I got out of it was the humor. But as I looked at it again and again, I realized how much substance there was in that video. He proves that the recipe will work. And at the end of that year, they had a remarkable year where no members left. Okay, that's not repeatable year after year after year. But he also brought in the 12 members. His club brought in the 12 members, and they had a fantastically successful year. As a result, after hearing him speak at a district conference, he became an unofficial member of our team, and we got that recording of his presentation because so many people wanted to see it. And actually, he did a presentation similar to that for the International Convention that turned out to be online instead of a trip to Hawaii for him this year. But he was selected out of a very competitive pool this year. So you've got your recipe we've provided you. You have your intentional strategies that we've provided you. You now have at least this one living, breathing example who's put it to use. And I'll tell you, I don't like to brag about my own club too much, but my own club did the very same thing this past year to even larger results and completely changed what my club experience is like. So this is doable and wanted to share that with you. Now, I think it would be worthwhile for you to take your sheets back out. That's what that we've been working on. Where last week, I think it was last week, where we talked about resetting the bar for your club. That is an absolutely critical component of this, the way that is reset, as I said, in a measurable way with a metric that people can see. And so I don't know if this first little bit changes the way you look at that or not. You may have had a perfectly good reset the bar, redefinition of what is good for your club to pursue. But again, like some of you did last week, please use the chat function and show us what that looks like for your club for this year, how you have redefined good in a very definable, understandable way with a measurable good, a measurable bar for your club. What does good look like in your club? You're resetting the bar, and your members are going to know what it's about as you communicate to them. I see we've got some answers in the chat bar here as well. I see Eric Goodwin says getting back over 60 members. So that's a very clearly measurable goal. We're going to get over 60 members. Now you're going to have to communicate the plan, how you're going to do that. You know, you're going to have to do that and go through all the steps we've talked about. And I don't know if you're coming from 30 members or from 55 members, but okay, 55. So great. So you're saying essentially net 10% increase in members this year. And then you can break that down into what that means, how many we have to bring in, because we know we're going to lose X number. That is great. That numerical goal makes it easy. You can use a United Way thermometer if you want, where the club is pursuing it. It's very visual. That sounds great. Let's see. Leslie, okay, Foothills Rotary to set a goal of growing by at least 3 to 4 members per year for each of the next 3 years. Super measurable. You know exactly what those numbers look like. Thank you, Leslie. That's great. And again, the communicate and keeping all that going, the spin script, all that's necessary. But this is a good first step. Anybody else want to chime in with a measurable goal in the chat?
Patrick, this is the Crandall co-presidents of Spartan West.
Yes.
And I think this has been really valuable for us. We are instituting a club assembly every quarter, and we have a new member who will be coming in the next 2 weeks. We're just very excited about that. And you've given us a lot to think about. And I love the video from today. That we're planning to show that at our meeting in the next month.
Great. I hope that'll be very useful for you. And you've got the link, so use that. Well, I thank you all again for the opportunity to have shared this time with you over the last 4 weeks. It's been a treat for me, and I'm going to let Terry Weaver take it away from here. And thank you again.
Thank you, Patrick. We have a little bit of time here today just to share some experiences and perhaps some successes and perhaps some challenges. And that's pretty much up to you. I would like to use, again, the chat box for this purpose. So if in the chat box, would you share with us some things that you're doing or doing differently as a result of this series that you've participated in? What are some of the things that you are doing or doing differently in your club that you weren't doing 5 weeks ago? Who's got to do different? One thing that you're doing today that you weren't doing 5 weeks ago with respect to membership. Larry Lee, why don't you tell us a little bit about your plans for Discover Rotary?
I'll be glad to, Terry, but I know that our membership chairperson is also on the program right now, so I don't want to
Sure.
overspeak what John has going, but due to John's encouragement, we have been working pretty seriously the past 2 or 3 weeks on new discovery program, because one of the things we really would like to do is to emphasize what goes on in our club. Of course, we want to talk about Rotary International and all the great international endeavors, such as, Polio Plus, but we want to really emphasize what we do in our club. And I think that will be one of the improvements in the
That's a good idea. The fact is they're joining your club, right?
Yep.
John, any other comments on that?
Yeah, I'll chime in. Larry's being very modest. He was the creator using Sandy's DR as the model. We're ready to launch it. The decision we have to make right now, we're still on Zoom in the decision that's before us immediately with President Travis. Are we going to try and launch it on Zoom, or are we going to be soon in person to launch it? So that's a key decision. The other thing Larry commented about in the comments is retention. The other thing we focused on is our president-elect is a member of the membership committee, has attended most of these workshops, and he's going to be very focused on our members 1 to 3 years as members.
Great. Okay.
Of which there are 13, and we know we've got 3 or 4 that we need to pay very close attention to.
Good idea. For whatever it's worth, in my experience in 3 months of Discover Rotary, with at least a prospect in each DR and at least a new member out of each DR, I found that it is a whole lot easier to do virtually than it is to do in person. I mean, there's no logistics.
Yeah.
You don't even have to put on pants. You know, now, when we get back to, and this hadn't been decided, but when we get back to in-person DR back in the hotel, for example, I'm pretty well convinced that's going to be a hybrid event. We're going to be offering that same event live streamed to a perhaps virtual audience as well.
Terry, the thing I like about it is the hybrid aspect of it, and getting, you know, all of us used to Zoom, is that we can do it anytime. So if we have one sponsor and one prospect and, you know, one other leader in the club, we can have a Zoom meeting on moment's notice. It
Sure.
doesn't take any effort at all. And that's one aspect when we get going with it that I really like a lot.
Eric, would you tell us about your plans for a Discover Rotary tomorrow? Just press your space bar and hold it to unmute.
Yeah, Terry, doing Discover Rotary again tomorrow. We did it, probably the last time I did it would have been, I'm not even sure if I did one in January or February, but we're doing one again tomorrow. And I'm actually glad that you went on ahead and put the stuff on Dropbox. I really like the lady from Farsaker, Sandy Olson. I really appreciate what she did a couple weeks ago. And I'm implementing some of the new 2020 data. I mean, you know, from a foundation standpoint and some of those newer slides. So I'm able to kind of freshen up the Discover Rotary for tomorrow. So we've got a pretty good, we've actually had a pretty good couple weeks, believe it or not, since we've come back. We've actually got about 4 or 5 people coming tomorrow. So we're really excited about the opportunity going forward for the next couple weeks. Excellent.
Okay. Anybody want to tell us what's getting in the way if you're not on this train, if you're not planning to set up some new member information sessions, new member Rotary information sessions? You can brand it Discover Rotary or anything you want. Well, what's getting in the way?
Complacency. Pete Crandall, Spartan West. Thanks, Terry. You know, we've got some of our originals are not the issue. It's some of our midtermers.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, we've always done it this way, or we've never done it that way. And one of my concerns is mentoring. We've got to do a better job of keeping young people that we bring in. We do a good job of bringing people in, but they turn pretty quickly because we're not doing a good job of explaining. That's why I like the video that explain the 4-way test. Why do we, what is this? A bunch of robotons stand up at the end of the meeting and say this pledge to some sign hanging on the door.
Good.
And so we need to do a better job of that, and I think that will come with time. But we're going to have a club assembly this week and lay out some of this stuff and say we either have to make a commitment to grow, or we're making. But if we don't do that, we're making a commitment to fade away, and I don't want to be part of that. So
those are the choices. Yeah. Somebody else. Okay, let's move to a slightly different topic. One of the things that we talked about was member retention, and we've had some of that conversation here as well. But another member retention strategy is these, compelling service projects people can get interested in and get excited about. And the question is, what kinds of service projects can you do in a COVID world? So if you would, in your chat, just share, a three or four word description or, short sentence describing service projects that you have been able to do in your club in this COVID environment. COVID compatible service projects. Okay, Rashika, looks like you got several. Would you share those with us?
Certainly. So the first one is trash pickup. That's easy to do because you can put on your mask, you're socially distanced, and so you're good to go in that regard. donation to a food pantry. A lot of them cannot allow volunteers in at this time. So it's relatively easy because we're Rotarians, we're giving people, you let folks know, hey, we're taking up donations for a local food pantry. The money came in, we did an excellent job with that. Back to school drive. There are a lot of kids in our area who are going to need assistance with going back to school. And so as soon as we didn't have to reinvent the wheel, United Way was like, hey, we're looking for community partners. And so we just jumped on the bandwagon with them and collected items and helped them with that donation. So those are 3 really quick things we've started so far to help out in the COVID environment.
Thank you. Ann, tell us about your mobile meals project. Is that in collaboration with like Meals on Wheels or some other organization?
It is Meals on Wheels. It's called Mobile Meals in Spartanburg. And we started out 2 years ago doing 1 day a week. And then COVID came and they needed people. And so members of our club stepped up and said, I'm fine, I can do it. And they are all, I mean, everything's like hermetically sealed. We can't go in and set it down anymore, but we still see the people. And so twice a week, every 2 weeks, we have members of our club who do mobile meals.
Great.
And they love it. And these people have become our people. So,
okay.
Yeah.
John Kimball, Virtual JA, I've heard about that. Tell us a little bit about how that's going to work.
Well, there's several options. The Junior Achievement statewide is doing training programs. I think it's this week and next for all the volunteers at the various options that you can deliver a GA program, either tape it, be virtual into the classroom. And so that's upcoming because we will not be in the schools for some time. So Junior Achievement's taken some very strong steps forward.
Good.
And our club's very much involved with JA.
How do we deliver the mission? Some other way.
Yep.
The Greenville Club, I haven't seen somebody chime in here yet, but the Greenville Club is working on, literally as we speak, virtual read to me, where we've actually, as a part of our hybrid meeting strategy, we bought a nice video camera, not terribly expensive, but it's better than shooting it with a phone, and a remote mic, another version of my little Walmart $10 special that I've got here in the placket of my shirt. And so we're going to be shooting the adult reading a book that we used to do in classrooms, but we can't do that right now. And of course, that now in Greenville County schools, Zoom is a problem in terms of their security firewalls and so forth, but we can send them a recorded file, an MP4 file of somebody reading a book to students, and they can put it up on the smart board and so forth. So we're going to give that a try. Frank, would you tell us a little bit about the projects you're talking about?
Yes, Terry, thank you. Our club's been doing a couple things. Bonnie, who's on, has led a blood drive, and we've given blood. We have another one coming up in October. Our past president last year, when he was going through pets, he heard about one of the clubs in North Carolina doing a garden, and we started a garden last year. And this year we've raised over 500 pounds of fresh produce to take to the local community center that has a nutrition program for about 18 people. So we feel real good about that. But we've taken snacks to first responders. We've things of that nature. Happy Feet's a good one. We're not doing it, but Happy Feet is a wonderful program this time of the year. And we've got a couple other things where members are. We need to do a Beautify America project. As school started back, and we really need to get out there. So, but there are lots of opportunities to encourage members. You don't have to get everybody out there at one time. Have little small teams that can social distance and work and do things. It just takes a little organization to do it, and that's how we've worked it.
Great. So let's move on to something a little bit different. What have you learned so far? This is successes and failures. What have you learned so far about virtual meetings or hybrid meetings. If you've migrated to hybrid meetings, or if you've been doing virtual meetings, what have been the lessons learned about that? Things that went well or things that didn't?
Jerry, this is Pete Crandall. We invested in a microphone because audio was the biggest problem. The people
Yep.
on Zoom could never hear us. So we've got a good quality. In fact, it was donated by one of our members' companies. But the next thing we're going to invest in is a camera.
Yeah.
I like the idea of, and we've got a couple of our people that are really missing reading to the kids at Jesse Bobo. So we're going to invest in that and see if we can do that with video. The technology, I'm not convinced that Zoom is the greatest thing in the world, but it beats not having a meeting. And we've been hybrid since about the 3rd of June, I think. And last week we had our best in-person attendance. We had 19, and
wow.
we had 5 on Zoom. So we had 24 out of 29 members. And so it's coming. But to me, it's just not the same as in person, but we're doing the best we can.
No, it's what it is.
So
I ended up doing a lot of research on cameras. If you want the benefit of that, just shoot me an email.
I will.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Somebody else that's had some experience, either great or poor. I'll share with you mine. I was a guest speaker at a club early on in the hybrid meetings era. It might have been their first or second meeting back together, and hadn't taken any of the hybrid meetings guide ideas and implemented them. Put a laptop on a table and hoped that somehow the laptop microphone was going to pick up the sound from a 20 by 30 foot room. My presentation, which was done virtually, was delivered over the PA system with a handheld mic held over the speakers of the laptop. It wasn't the most impressive thing in the world. And you should have seen the chat. I mean, whining about the sound and so forth, deservedly so. The club literally didn't have its act together. Other things you've learned about hybrid meetings or virtual meetings?
Larry, or Terry, on Larry's watch as president, 2 things I would say is our attendance stayed strong, about the same as in-person meetings during the Zoom meetings. The other thing I think we observed is that you actually have more flexibility at attracting speakers. The 2 that come to mind for me, we had Debbie Vance, who's the queen with branding from way out west in British Columbia. And then we had 4 of our international students over many, many years from different locations in the world as a panel.
Yeah,
So,
y'all had a really impressive speaker lineup. And like you say, you probably couldn't have flown those students in with your budget.
Yeah.
Somebody else. While you're thinking about that, I'll share with you what I have learned. And I have learned that it's almost impossible to do even a virtual meeting, let alone a hybrid meeting, solo. You need 2, 3, or perhaps even 4 people to effectively do a hybrid meeting. And there's just not enough bandwidth in somebody's head, let alone the tool set itself, to manage the audio visual, to manage the Zoom meeting itself, to make sure that the person that forgot to unmute himself gets muted. If you're using chat or Q&A, that's somebody else that needs to kind of ride that and watch that. This is a tag team affair. When we get back to hybrid meetings, we plan to do that with a crew of at least 3. And I've recently been involved in a zone webinar where we had hundreds of people, literally worldwide. We had people in Malaysia and India, et cetera, as well as the continental United States. And we had 5 people involved in that crew. The guy switching the slides was in Florida. I was driving the Zoom from South Carolina. Another guy that was monitoring the Q&A and feeding that to the speaker, who was in Ohio. There were a lot of moving parts to that, but we had them all, had somebody on each one of them. And that's really essential. This is a good opportunity to get more people involved with some skills maybe you didn't know folks had. I've been corresponding with a Rotarian from California, And he engaged one of his members to learn to drive the Zoom, and never done anything like that before. New developed skill. Rotary creates opportunities. Anybody else? Let's talk about what you've had trouble with. Things that get in the way.
Terry, this is Rashika with Aiken Sunrise. I would just like to give a word of caution. We've done a few Discover Rotary events since the membership summit started a year or so ago. And one area I will disclose that I think that we've not done so well, and unfortunately we've lost new members as a result of it. We did the recruitment piece as designed. We followed the recipe. We got prospects, we got members, but we did not follow up with the key piece of the membership and mentoring piece. And they just kind of started to fade away, and then they left Rotary and forgot to tell us. So I cannot stress how much you've already stressed. If you follow the recipe by the letter, you will be successful. So that's just kind of a word of caution for Making Sunrise.
Onboarding is absolutely essential. What you're really doing in that onboarding is you're reselling those members on Rotary. That brings up a question of if you're not producing either an e-bulletin or a club bulletin or a club newsletter for each meeting or a couple times a month, why not? What's getting in the way? What's getting in the way of a club newsletter? That's a big piece of the onboarding process, is just keeping members in touch and in the loop. I'd encourage you also for club service projects, and my club does this all the time. For club service projects, use DACDB online registration. That way you know who's coming. More importantly, you know who's not. And you have that reconcile feature in DACDB. You can resend an invitation to only the people that decline to register. And it will double or triple your participation in service projects. If it's on the calendar, people know where to look, and then you remind them of it by email and send them a link right in that email. If you are not entirely sure how to do that, Faithline is the DACDB support team for District 7750. She'll be happy to help you with those functions. I'll tell you that our district is still positive in terms of membership gain, nowhere near where we need to be, and not positive by a lot. But we're not leading the district, or not leading the zone, but we're in the hunt as far as keeping our membership stable and learning to grow it in this environment.
Hey Terry, this is James from Fort Mill Rotary. I was just going to share something. It was somewhat of a concern for us in the beginning was with our club meeting virtually, and we're still charging the full due amount. We wanted to create some type of concession that would allow Rotarians to potentially have a break in their due cost. And so what we offered, and we just rolled it out, but it's been very well received, is a meal for a meal. So essentially our Rotarians can opt out of paying the meal portion of their dues, or they can elect to have the meal portion of their dues go to food programs in our community. And that's been well received. People are really jumping on board, and we had a few folks mention possibly leaving the club just because there was no due reduction. And I think since then, people have gotten engaged with that. So that's been very positive for our club so far.
Thank you. Very helpful. Sure, John. Somebody else, anything you've done to, as far as innovation on the dues and finance side?
I'll say this, Aiken Noon is not on right now, but I'm certain they'll be on tomorrow. They did something absolutely amazing. What they decided to tell members is, hey, if you would like to leave your meal on your dues, that will go towards the Salvation. We will get our vendor, which is the Dewberry Hall, to create the meal, and we will send it over to Salvation Army every Monday for meals for homeless or those in need. And so the Aiken Noon Club has done that, and that's worked out absolutely amazing for them. I think almost everyone is remaining with the meals on there. So that's another great opportunity for service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing to keep in mind is that, you can't help but be running short on expenses. Most of the things that we did to spend money, we're not doing. So chances are you might want to revisit your budget, and you may be in better shape on expenses than you thought. You did get, as you know, a $6 per head relief this year on district dues because we carried over last year's district conference allocation. We didn't spend it last year, so we'll allocate that to this year, assuming that we can again have a live conference. Carol, did you have a point?
I was trying to unmute myself. A couple of things. One, I want to just remind everybody, a number of clubs took advantage of the No Rotarian Left Behind. It's typical that in December clubs begin to, I hate to use the term, but dump off those that might be in arrears of their dues. We want to make sure that we do a second round of No Rotarian Left Behind coming up in December to keep that from happening if people have been affected by COVID. But I don't think my president is on. If she is, I'm not trying to upstage her, but we had the best. I've been in the Anderson Rotary Club for 25 years. We had the best day ever of Rotary today because we kicked off our adoption of Holman Park Primary School, which is the most poverty-ridden school in our community. And so we had about 10 Rotarians there, and it was moving. So I believe that we're not only going to retain a lot of members because of that, but we're going to also grow because we're doing something so meaningful in our community.
What projects are you able to do at the school, Carol?
Well, today we kicked off with three or four things. One, we did our teacher appreciation lunch today. It was just fantastic. The second thing is that one of the things the principal said is that many of the teachers, when they are on bus duty, they don't have umbrellas. So we donated 6 huge golf umbrellas that will be in the office so they can pick one up as they go out. If they have bus duty and it's pouring down rain, they can take them back afterwards, so they'll be there. We also gave each teacher a $50 Amazon gift card for things that they may need during this first part of the year. And we also gave, I'm going to show you this. Instead of their students having to wear masks, we bought them these great little shields that have kittens, lions, tigers, and frogs on them. So we were very, very excited. It was an amazing day for Rotary in Anderson, South Carolina. Makes me excited.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Best day ever. My grandkids are still young enough to have best day ever.
Yeah. Terry, this is Pete Crandall again. I don't know about best day ever, but we adopted a Title I school, Jesse Bobo, on the west side of Spartanburg. And access to the school has been somewhat difficult, but we are building an outdoor learning center for them. We work on Saturdays and we work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon until about 7. We're converting an indoor patio area to an actual learning center. We're putting up tables, put in big planters so the kids can plant plants and flower and food products and vegetables and things. So it's a different timing issue, but it's just the feeling that we get that we're actually helping young people that need the help.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. My club is doing its second round of Happy Feet at the school we've adopted. Last year, of course, it was full on regular environment. This year it's sort of COVID modified, but I'm sure we'll be doing probably I'm guessing at least 100 vouchers for kids. We are also we have a park cleanup that was planned for last Saturday, hurricane deferred. So we're doing that in another couple of Saturdays and get back into working in the great outdoors, that sort of thing. Well, I appreciate everybody's contribution here. I appreciate you sharing things at work, sharing your challenges and so forth. I wanted to remind you of just a handful of these takeaways with respect to culture change. Patrick has reviewed these with you this evening, and those are: reset the bar, redefine what good is in terms of a metric. And for example, a metric is not, we need younger members. A metric is, of the new members we attract this year, 25% will be under 50. That's a metric. Or just identify a number. And you know, don't set that bar too low. You know, there's a lot of things happening in a 30-something's life, and there's a lot of costs on the table, and there's a lot of challenges. And you know, that is your hardest demographic to go after, is the 30 and 40-somethings. Give me a 50-year-old any day of the week. I've got a 20-year runway with that person. There's a lot of life left in a 50-year-old, believe it or not. And you know, don't go after the very most difficult demographic, particularly if what your club needs to do is bulk up critical mass. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Club assessment. Carol Burdett is a huge fan of the club health check. A lot of other options and opportunities. We talked about those, surveys, etc. This idea of creating a coalition, I think, is the #1 takeaway from the Cotter book. It is the #1 pitfall I've seen particularly inexperienced leaders fall in. They go to pets or they go to something like this. They go back to the club all fired up and toss this idea out on the table, and one of the elder naysayers just cuts them off at the knees. Then you, of course, got to claw your way back to even get back to putting the idea out there again. Cotter says that most people completely underestimate the power of a vision, or he says the vacuum created when there's not one. A vision of what your club's going to be is critically essential. That spin algorithm will work in all parts of your life: situation, problem, implication, need. Just used it Sunday afternoon in a phone call with a board member in another part of my volunteer life. Teach your members how to do the behaviors you want. Don't assume that they know how to mentor, for example. Don't assume that they know even how to answer the question of what's Rotary. Communicate, 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 step it up. If you're not doing an e-bulletin or some sort of e-communication, make that a high priority to get in that game. And of course, virtual meetings and hybrid meetings are part of keeping in touch with your membership. You may have to confront a couple of people that are getting in the way. And, you know, at the end of the day, you basically say, well, Jack, it looks like we may not be able to agree on this. Can you agree not to get in my way? You don't have to support me, but can you agree to stay out of the way? And then short-term wins. Ron gave some really great examples of short-term wins. Y'all have had them. Celebrate those and reinforce those, and that increases the organization's belief that yes, indeed, we can become something different. So those are things that I'd like you to think about as you put together your overall recasting of your Rotary Club. And you know, most every Rotary Club does need to be recast because we're in a different world than we were in 6 months ago. So I'll leave it at that and turn it back to DG Beth Paget. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Terry. Rotary opens opportunities. That's the thing for this year. And if you've learned one thing in this 4-week, 5-week plus, and you count the bonus, is that there are still so many opportunities for service. There's so many opportunities for fellowship and fun. And there are so many opportunities for bringing new people into Rotary. Great ideas, great strategies that we've talked about. It doesn't stop here, though. The district leadership is here to help you. Carol Burdett, district membership chair, is going to be by your side the entire way. She and her team will. We're already talking about ways to help clubs beyond this series and beyond the initial Leave No Rotarian Behind that has helped some clubs keep members who are great Rotarians who have suffered financial hardship. So thank you so much. Thank you, Carol Burdett, district membership chair. And of course, thank you, Faith Line, our district administrator, for all your help. Patrick Eakes has been just wonderful. He had to leave for another meeting tonight, so he's not here to say goodbye to everybody. But I really appreciate your time. If you have someone in your club who can benefit, we're live again Wednesday at noon. Everything you've heard has been recorded. All the materials are in the Dropbox. So please look for an opportunity to share what you've learned with your club and to reach out to us, to Carol and myself, if you need some help. We're here to help you. So thank you so much. Y'all stay safe and let's go grow Rotary. Bye-bye.